Okay, now that you've installed Java, what we're going to do is uh, write our first Java program. And ever since the C language introduced this back in the 1960s, that's how old it is, the first program is always going to be Hello World or some variant thereof. And so what we're going to do is, even though we're ultimately going to be using an IDE for our to write our code, it's important to understand what's going on underneath the hood for this, and that's the purpose of this exercise. Now, it will also illustrate a number of important points about Java, the Java compiler, the Java virtual machine, the bytecodes that are produced by the compiler, and how things are being executed. And it's important to understand that even when we're using the IDE, that's going to hide much of this. And so, nevertheless, it's important to understand how this is going on beneath the hood, because when things go wonky, as they will, having this perspective is absolutely critical. Okay, so we're now back in the day when Java first came out, the IDE consisted of a text processor and the command prompt. So we are going to use that for our development at first. So let's now in Windows, I know there are some fancier ones. We're going to just use Notepad, okay, which comes with Windows. And so just open up Notepad. Now, here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to specify the package that our file is going to be in. And okay, now what are packages? That's something we're going to cycle back to and cover. So if don't be concerned if you're not clear on what a package is, but the very first line is going to say package. Package. Make sure to spell it correctly. And then now the package we're going to give it is CS2173. Now this is technically optional, but as far as writing good Java code, this is required. That is, every Java class must be in a named package. Java allows you to not do this necessarily, and sometimes the Hello World that they offer is in the unnamed package, but that is not good practice. And so I never want to do anything which is not an ideal practice. Okay, so what we're going to do is name this class. Now, okay, what is a class? We're going to cycle back and talk about that, but the very next thing you should enter is public class, and we're going to call it Hello World. There are naming restrictions on what we can call a class, and what is it? Why call it public? Well, because there are other options. Again, these are all things which will be covered later on. Now, the next line that you will write is the following. It will be public static void main, and you have to write that exactly, and then have an open parentheses, the word string followed by square brackets, and capitalization is important. In fact, for everything here, capitalization must be exactly as it is. Now, the next, we're going to say args. That actually is arbitrary, so you can give it a different name if you want, but I would encourage you to do the same. Now, okay, what is this? This is actually a method. It is a static method, and it's a public method. And what does this void mean? Void means it's not going to return anything. Okay, so now the next thing is we are going to finally write our print statement. Now in Java, especially if you're coming from Python or a scripting language, If you want to print something to the console, you just say print. Java makes that a little bit more complicated, so you have to type the following: system dot out dot print line, PRNTLN, open close, and then hello world. And that is the entire class. Now, we're going to save that. And okay, now here's the thing is that we have to save it in a particular place. Because we've declared the package to be called CS2173, we must save it in a directory of the same name. So we have to save this in a directory called CS2173, which at this point doesn't exist, but we can create that on the fly. So we're going to save it. Okay, so let's put this in Documents, and we should be able to create a new folder on the fly. I'm going to create I'm going to put it. I'll just call it Code, and then put the put it in. I want another folder called CS2173, and capital. It must be lowercase. Capitalization is important on this. And so now we're going to save it. What is the file name? We don't have any options. The file name must be identical to this right here, including capitalization. So we must call, we must call it Hello World, and the extension must be Java, all lowercase. Okay, we have no option on that. We must save it in a directory called CS2173. It can be as deep in the directory structure as possible, but the actual directory it's in must match the name of the package that it's in. The name of the class must match the name of the class that we have declared in the file, and the extension must be Java, lowercase. So we're going to save that. Okay, now that we have created and saved it, we need to run it. And for this we need the command line. Again, and if you pin the command line, you can just sort of click it from there. If you haven't, then you can just go back and type CMD, open the app. Now, we need to find where they put it, and they seem to have saved it on my OneDrive. So here, let's go find it. Here it is, code there. So actually, here's what we can do. We can change directory, and what we can do is just kind of drag it from the from the Finder window or from the File Explorer window into the command. CD is change directory, and now we are there. So let's see what we got. Okay, so let's make sure everything is all there. Okay, so now the next step is we need to compile it into bytecodes, and for that we have the javac. And so here the command is javac. Now we can just give it the file, but unfortunately what that'll do is that'll put the compiled bytecodes into the same directory as our source code, and we generally don't want to do that. What we want to do is we want to put it in a different directory. So we need to actually create that directory. So the command is make direct mkdir, and let's call it build, because that's actually what our IDE is going to call it. So the command is javac, and then we do a -d for directory build. That tells the compiler to put the compiled class files into the build directory, and then we give it the file that we're compiling, and hopefully that happens. So let's check in our Explorer. Okay, here's the build directory, and then notice that what it did is it created the file structure, and in there is now a class called helloworld.class. So notice it has the same name as our source file, except with an extension of class. What are these? These are the so-called class files. And they are the bytecodes that the Java compiler has created. And that is what we can finally execute. So now we can execute it from here. But what we have to do is we have to specify the class path. And we're going to call the class path build. And now what we need to do is we need to specify the fully qualified name of our file, which is cs2173.helloworld. And then notice that it is case sensitive. Okay, so notice the difference here is that on the file system, it would be cs2173/ or / helloworld.class or helloworld.java, but the name of the actual name of the bytecodes is this it's called the fully qualified name. Don't worry about that. We will explain all of that as the course continues. But the point is that this will execute our Hello World program. Now, and this is one of the reasons why Hello World is the first one that's always done, is because there is not a whole lot that can go wrong here. I mean, now there are lots of things that can, but not a whole lot. There's really just one executable statement that says print this string to the command line. It doesn't have to be hello world. It can be, hello, goodbye, go F yourself, whatever. But the point is that it's a program which is simple enough so that any problems hopefully aren't going to be in the class itself. But the challenge, as you notice, that there are a lot of moving parts just in order to get this thing working. So now the next step in all of this is, because what is the downside of what we've done? Well, first of all, Notepad or a text editor doesn't help us with the syntax. It doesn't help us with the formatting. I mean, it doesn't really give a whole lot of support. Furthermore, we had to go find things in the file system and then execute them on the command line. That was a whole complicated thing. And the next step is we're going to install NetBeans, which is the IDE that we're going to be using. The book uses a different one called Eclipse. If you wish to use Eclipse, then that's perfectly fine too. It's just that I use NetBeans. Which is better? They're, as far as I'm concerned, they're both equally functional. I'm just not as familiar with Eclipse as I am with NetBeans. So if you want to follow along more in the book with Eclipse, that's absolutely fine. If you want to follow what I'm doing, I'll be giving my examples in NetBeans, but all of that is going to be next.